And I want to end this video on a good note. This may be one of my favorite Trump supporter interactions. I talked to this sweet man and he tells me that I actually taught him a few things about the current state of politics.
Yes, we're going to watch this part and I'm going to give a commentary and I'm going to call it The Blind Leading the Blind. This is your favorite half Chinese. Let's roll it.
And this really illustrates my broader point. There are millions of people out there in the country like this. Not a bad person, not an inherently bad person at all. They just don't have access to the information they need because they watch Fox News or they had
Yes, and this problem also goes for the other side that calls itself left-wing, which essentially is never a left-wing because left-wing in the United States essentially just doesn't exist. What they mean by a left-wing is the left side of the right-wing spectrum. And both sides, those people, they have been successfully brainwashed into thinking that they cannot talk to each other anymore. I applaud this young man for doing exactly that. However, he is not listening to the others. And that is the problem. What he is doing, he wants to tell the others what is right from his perspective instead of listening what the other party wants. Because if Americans would start to listen to each other, then they will soon find out that they all want to have the same. They want to have a good place to live. They want to have safety. They want to have job security. And they want their children to be able to go to school and develop themselves. And probably a good road here and there. So it's very simple what they want. But if they do not listen to each other and just want to nag that the other one needs to do how they please or whatever they have been told they need to think, then you will never change this situation. Anyway, we continue, but we can soon find out that this gentleman is the same. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He never thought about it. He's just accepting things because he identifies himself with one particular group. So everything that the leaders of that particular groups are saying must be accurate, and everything that the other part is saying must be not accurate. And that's the problem in the United States and the collective West. Everybody that's following the United States in the capitalist society is having the same problem, totally brainwashed. I'm sorry.
Republican family growing up, and they were primed to think this way. You cannot look me in the eyes and tell me that this is a bad human being.
And the same goes for you. When I look at you, I see a very young kid. I wouldn't hurt a fly, but what he is going to say, that's, oh my God. Horrific. I couldn't imagine that this came out of his mouth, honestly. Listen closely.
What about the funding of Ukraine?
No, I don't think that should happen.
Why not?
Because we need to take care of America first.
America.
Well, this is the funniest part in this whole, right? So you have this Trump supporter who should be extremely right-wing. And then you have Adam Mockler, I believe. Sorry if I don't pronounce it correctly, but I think that is how it's called. Who presents itself as a left wing, right? Because he's for Democrats. The funny thing is they're twisting everything around. It's so confusing. So the right wing now says, no, we should not have war. We should first think of America. And that is typical left wing ideology, although it is not in the same way that the Trump administration think, right? Because they think most of the time in a zero-sum ideology, while left-wing would not think in a zero-sum ideology. This kid who presents himself as left-wing is arguing for war, that it will benefit the United States, is just going to be beyond me. It's just ridiculous.
First, I agree, but I'd make the argument that funding Ukraine is exactly how we put America first, because a lot of people think we're sending cash backs, but we're sending old military equipment, right?
What is happening? none of that money is going to Ukraine. Well, there's a portion going to Ukraine to pay off the politicians so they keep that war going. But most of the money just stays in the United States. And yes, you are correct, Adam Mockler. But it is not going to the majority of the people. It is going to a 1%, the military complex and the shareholders of it. It is not going to Joe and Jane, who is making a part of a weapon. Because a lot of those weapon parts are being made in prison under slave labor. So all you're doing is giving prisoners more work to deliver for the big corporates, and the average Jane and Joe is not going to benefit anything from it. Besides that, if your ideology is that you should have war because it creates jobs, then why do you have so many homeless people that do not have a job, or jobless people? Because not every homeless person is without a job. But you have millions and millions without jobs, while the United States is involved in literally each and every single war in the world. Whether it is through proxies or however it is, they always are involved. Every single war, you see their fingerprints on it. And then that's the truth, right? So if that is the case, then how is it possible that not everybody got a job in the United States? So that's already a false, flawed ideology you got there.
And after we send that military equipment, we get to create new American jobs to restock and repile that, right?
That's a good point.
On top of that,
That's what I mean. The blind leading the blind. So you're convincing somebody that war is great. Did you ever think that war is taking the lives away of other people? Did you ever think, Adam, that war is destroying entire nations and entire families? Did it ever occur to you the immense amount of pain that you are willing to deliver to the world so you can have a couple of jobs? Because it's not going to be many, many jobs. And those people that are having those jobs, Adam, are probably not even going to be able to make rent meet. Because a huge part of your population is living on the streets while having a 40-hour job.
I'm homeless. I work a full-time job, 40 hours, and can't pay to live here.
So it's only the capitalist that is going to get the majority of the share while it is not doing all the work. Maybe you should have think of that. Is it worth the human suffering that you bring to others? And if it is, then I want you to think of one simple thing. Why don't you bring all those wars to the United States? It's great, isn't it? It would give so many jobs, even more jobs in the military. Everybody can just start. Oh, wait, then it is attacking your own people. Oh no, that's not beneficial. But you are willing to take the lives of thousands of people. I don't know what the numbers are now, but it's hundreds of thousands of people, right? How many families have been totally destroyed? What about that country totally destroyed and totally taken over by foreign entities? And you think that that is going to help the United States? Well, it's not. In fact, it's making the United States more and more hated. Each war they are involved in, they are creating more enemies. And you might not feel it now, Adam, because you're safe behind your computer. But one day, the tables will turn. And you gotta think of that. Because the world hates the United States.
You think Vladimir Putin's our enemy?
Not really,
Really, why not?
because I think he's trying to run his own country, and he's not. I don't think he is a threat to America.
It's okay that he's running his own country, but the problem is when he starts to invade other countries next to him. So we should protect sovereign countries. We should protect our allies, essentially, right?
I agree.
So-
That's like
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here, right? So he's saying that, and that is why they're just taking talking points of whoever they are listening to, and their so-called right wing and left wing, they're all having their own little echo chamber, and it's clearly that he doesn't think for himself because he never had the tools to do so, because that's not what is being taught in American schools. Similar like it is not being taught here in Dutch schools. Critical thinking. And this is the problem. So he got a problem with other nations attacking another nation. He has no problem with his country being involved in each and every war, including the Ukraine war. He doesn't even understand the history of why this war is there. And that is the problem already. It is very clear that it is the United States who pushed the Ukraine into this war to work as a proxy against Russia. So if he says it's not a problem if he's for his own country, like this gentleman said, this man is actually right. And this one is totally wrong. Putin is taking care of his own country. You are encroaching on his border with NATO, the most aggressive terror organization in the world. It has been an enemy of Russia. And that is why this war is there. The biggest threat was NATO. And not knowing and not understanding the dynamics of the geopolitics, and then you are trying to convince somebody else who also doesn't know it, is the blind leading the blind.
us trying to invade Canada.
And that wouldn't be okay.
Right.
So to piece my argument together, we're creating new American jobs, and in the process, we get to protect an ally, a sovereign country, Ukraine, from...
So, I would like to understand why Adam Mockler calls him a dictator, and I understand that he calls it a dictator in the new Western sense, so not the true sense of the word, right? What did Vladimir Putin do to his people that makes him a dictator? Because they are doing pretty good in Russia. So what makes him a dictator in the Western sense of the word? Like, there's no evidence of that. Like, literally zero. Unless you blindly believe the mainstream media. In this case, whether it is the left or the right wing, I call it the capitalist mainstream media. And that is why this kid should start to wake up and maybe even travel to Russia to see how the Russians live themselves. And then he can witness for himself that these people are actually living a pretty good life, which you wouldn't think if it was under the Western sense of a dictator, how they call Putin, right? He hasn't done anything wrong to his people. Why would you make such an assessment? It's just ridiculous. And then when he is talking about invading other nations, what about your government? The amount of countries they have invaded far exceeds whatever Russia ever had invaded. Do you think your government is good? So the world needs to be protected from the United States. It doesn't need to be protected against Russia. If it was that the world was protected against the United States, this war in Ukraine wouldn't be happening. But then again, you wouldn't be happy because, yes, you wouldn't have those jobs to make weapons over the backs of other thousands and thousands of people that are now misery because of that.
So I think we're protecting America's interests. I think this is exactly how we put America first, right? Can you see that point of view?
That is a very good point. That's a good point. You've educated me a lot.
He then asked me how old I am. We have a good moment where he says, wow, you're 21. That is a great moment. And I say, thank you for listening to me, sir. So it is possible to reach across the aisle and talk to people who aren't bad human beings. Now, of course, many of the Trump supporters I talked to were super far down the rabbit hole. I don't know if this guy I'm going to be able to...
So are you. And this is the problem. Do we hear the way that he's speaking? The kid is 21 years old, hasn't seen anything of the world, just come out of the belly. I mean, come on, let's face it. Talking about other grown-ups, his fellow Americans, doesn't understand they all live in the same country, under the same circumstances, with the same news outlets around them. But somehow he feels that he himself is one level higher than this older generation. Not doing its own homework, doesn't have the framework to think for itself, doesn't understand what critical thinking is, and is just echoing what his side of the spectrum is telling him to echo. And then he says, see it as possible that we can. You were not talking to them. You were not listening to them. You were lecturing them. And lecturing them with false information. And then you become divisive again. And this is what Americans always do. It's the problem. It's a problem. It's always a good idea to just apply your own logic to your own country or to your own people, right? So if you think that war is such a great idea because it gives you jobs, try and think of it how that war would be in your own country. Would you still think it's a great idea? And if you don't think that it's not a great idea, then why would you think that? Because actually it is literally the same. In fact, you will even have even more benefits of it because you have so many roads you need to rebuild and so many schools you need to rebuild. And mind you, I'm not advocating for war in the United States. I wish everybody in the whole world would get to live a happy life. But for this kid, just think of it. If that would happen to you, would you like to hear about your family losing their lives and etc., etc.? Of course you wouldn't, right? But why do you wish it for other people? Would you like it when Russia would have the same mindset for the United States, and then the kid in Russia says, well, it's a great idea. It's create jobs for us, right? It's ridiculous. You would be amazed, like, how can people think of that? But because you don't feel that pain of those people, it doesn't register with you. But I really want you to start and sit down for a little moment and just deeply and deeply and deeply think about this, because your ideology when it comes to these kind of things is tremendously inhumane. And you should fix that, because to have a mindset like that, where you say that thousands and thousands of people need to lose their life is a good idea because of a couple of jobs, that's really, 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 really never a good idea, right? Anyway, that's what more people should do, is just apply your own logic upon yourself or upon your own situation. And then you very, very soon find out whether something is really nice to do or good to do or not, right? The Ukrainians and the Russian equally are human beings, right? Similar like Americans. So each loss of a human life is just never a good idea. Everything is related to each other and everything is interrelated to each other. We all should be able to find a way to live together in cooperation in a beneficial way towards each other. That is what you should be striving for, not for other nations to be in war so you can profit from it. That kind of mindset is exactly what is going to destroy the United States eventually. And when that happens, the rest of the world is going to say, we're not going to help you. Why would we? You already benefited from us being in war. Do you understand that kind of mindset? People in all over the world, they just don't like the United States generally. And if you don't believe me, just go around the world and ask them. Honestly, they will all tell you no. And the reason why is because you're constantly creating wars all over the globe. But at the same time, you are saying that Putin is attacking another sovereign nation. Well, this is the amount of countries that your nation has attacked. Those are all sovereign nations. It's just dreadful, dreadful. How can you, on one side, say this, while your country is the worst when it comes to invading sovereign nations in the entire world since 1950? Just think of what you're saying. If you would have applied that logic to yourself first, and you would have done that research, then you would have said, well, let me look at my country. How many countries did we invade? And you would be like, oh my God, no, I cannot say that. Because that is actually what we are doing. Wait, what? We are worse than Russia? We are worse than Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran combined? Wait a minute. And I always thought it was the other way around. I thought that they were the Western, or they were the dictators. But in fact, it is us. But because these people don't do their due diligence in their own research, they think that Putin is some kind of a bad dictator because, in his case, CNN and NBC has been constantly telling him that, drumming it into his little brain by repeating. That is called brainwashing by repetition. Because this kid cannot say a single thing about what Putin does in Russia, yet he is talking like that to him. Probably doesn't even know what's going on in Russia. Anyway, that was what I have for you for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, share, and if you have not yet, then follow. This was your favorite half Chinese, and as always, have a great day. By the way, no hate to this young kid. It's just a kiss. But yeah, I hope you will learn.